All right, I will say good morning. Let us begin. I'm going to get a cheat a little bit on just 2 minutes. This way we get in the sponsorships and Menucha Shaindl and can start the shir. Daf get 5:40. So we'll say good morning and a good chodesh to everyone. I want to begin by thanking all of our sponsors, our new TALMUD TORAH sponsors for the month of Cheshvan. To thank Yanky and Aliza Statman, Yitzy and Rebecca Statman for dedicating the shiurim this month in commemoration of the first yarzheit of their sister, Menucha Shaindl Yehudis Bas Dovid Yosef. To thank Shmuel and Robyn Korobkin for dedicating the shiurim this month in commemoration of the 25th yarzheit of Avram's mother, Melanie Solomon, Pessa Mira Bas Chaim Zichrona Livracha. To thank our week of learning sponsors, Avram Zysman, in commemoration of the yarzheit of his grandfather, Avram ben Aharon, Tzvi and Shane Shir, in honor of the entire Kehila, Shmuel and Shira Pepper, in honor of Ari Lerner. To thank our day of learning sponsors, the Park Towers East family, Le'ilui Nishmas Sar Leah Bas Chaim Zusha. May her memory be a blessing for Klal Yisrael, and may Hashem grant the family comforts. We hope that in the merit of our TALMUD TORAH, all of the neshamas will have an aliyah. The family's ein nechama. I will say with that, let us begin. Baruch Hashem, a lot to do today. Not a lot of time, and a lot of Gemara in Meretz Hashem. So I will say today's daf is Kuf Yud Beis, the last daf of Maseches Kesuvos Haba Alinu L'Tova. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem on Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis 111b, and we are picking up in Meretz Hashem at Amar Le Rebbe. Okay, so it's really a lot to do today. In the intermediate wide lines, it is 2, 4, 6, 7 lines down. So Kevan de Chazi de Mistar. So let's remember again, just reorient us also just a moment. Rabbi Elazar made a statement that Ami Haratzos, ignorant Jews, are not resurrected during Tchias HaMesim. This statement bothered Rabbi Yochanan very much. So therefore, again, Amar Le Rebbe Matzasi Lahen Takana Min HaTorah. So Rabbi Elazar says, the truth is, Rebbe, I found a remedy for the Amei Haaretz. What's the remedy for the Amei Haaretz? The pasuk says, you, the ones who are clinging to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Chaim kulchem hayom. You are all living today. Is it possible for a person to cling to the Shechina? I was supposed to say the pasuk itself is difficult to understand. Baksiv, ki Hashem Elokecha ish ochla. The pasuk says Hashem is an all-consuming fire. So how can you cling to something which is an all-consuming fire? Elo kol hamasa bitol talmid chacham. Moshe and I were just talking about this, literally this concept yesterday after davening. Rather, the Gemara says that a person who goes there, a person who goes in and marries off his daughter to a Talmid Chacham, or does business with a Talmid Chacham. In other words, he allows the Talmid Chacham to financially benefit from him. Ultimately, or a person who allows the Talmid Chacham to benefit from his property. So the Gemara says, such a person is counted as if he goes ahead and is connecting, literally is clinging to the Shechina. Similarly, the pasuk says to love Hashem your God, and to go ahead and cling to Him. We'll say such a beautiful Gemara. Is it possible for a person to cling to the Shechina? Is that possible? If a person marries off his daughter to a Talmid Chacham, or a Osa Prakmati to a Talmid Chacham, or a person does business with a Talmid Chacham. I will say, doing business with a Talmid Chacham doesn't literally mean that. In other words, it's taking, Rashi points out, it's taking the Talmid Chacham's money, investing it, and doing business for him. In other words, allowing him to make money with his money without him having to be involved in business. Or a person who goes ahead and literally shares his wealth with the Talmid Chacham. Such a person is looked at as if they are literally connecting, clinging to the Shechina. So we'll say the idea over here that Rabbi Elazar is bringing down is the notion Vatem hadveikim b'Hashem Elokechem chaim kulchem hayom. If you cling to Hashem, you will have life. Which means that halacha l'maisa, even if someone is ignorant, but ultimately they have this connection with Torah. How do they have the connection with Torah? Marrying off their daughter to a Talmid Chacham, sharing their wealth with a Talmid Chacham, helping the Talmid Chacham, again, with his own finances. Such a person like that is considered to be connecting to the Shechina, and therefore, again, will be able to partake in resurrection as well. Incredible. Both say it's such a beautiful imagery. The Gemara says in the future, in Mimosa Mashiach, when there's Tchias HaMesim, the tzaddikim are going to sprout up from the earth in Yerushalayim. Shne'emar ve'atzitzu me'er ke'esev ha'aretz ve'ein ir elu Yerushalayim shne'emar ve'ganosi ala ir azos. So we'll say the imagery of Tchias HaMesim, of the tzaddikim popping up like blades of grass right in Yerushalayim. Amr Rabbi Bar Yosef, asidim tzaddikim shiyamdu mabushein. The tzaddikim, ultimately, when they are resurrected, will be resurrected in their clothing. So the Gemara says, Kal v'chomer chita. It's a kal v'chomer from wheat. Ma chita shenikbara aruma yotze b'mei levushin. A chita, which is literally buried naked. The idea is when you put the grain, when you put the kernel of grain in the ground, there's nothing on it, and yet it comes out. And there are all these husks and different things on it. So it goes in unclothed, comes out clothed, so to speak. Tzadikim shenikbru b'levushein alachas kama v'kama. Tzaddikim who are buried in their clothing certainly will come out of the grave clothed as well. So we'll say, so again, like I keep saying in all these Gemaras, there's so much to say on each of these pieces. The idea that the tzaddik goes to the grave clothed, of course, can literally mean tzaddik is wearing tahrichim, wearing shrouds, but also clothed with mitzvos, right? The greatest clothing a person could acquire during their lifetime, is not anything that's a material brand name. But the greatest clothing one acquires during their lifetime, ultimately, again, as their Torah, their mitzvos, their chasadim, the tzaddik goes into the grave clothed, and in resurrection, he's resurrected with that same clothing of the Ma'asim Tovim, of the accomplishments of this world as well. Incredible. Avram Zysman, Asidah Eretz Yisrael, so beautiful. Shetotzi glusko seklinilas. So we'll say in the Messianic era, Eretz Yisrael is going to experience such bounty that literally the land is going to produce fully formed loaves of bread and fully formed linen garments. Shne'emar hipisas bar ba'aretz tarabanan hipisas bar ba'aretz barosh harim amru asida chita shetetamer kideka va'ola barosh harim. This is incredible. In the Messianic era, the wheat is going to be so plentiful that literally a wheat stalk is going to grow as high as a palm tree. Going to grow as high as a palm tree and sometimes even higher than mountains. Incredible. You'll say that's very nice, but who's harvesting that? Who's harvesting that, right? In other words, it's fantastic to have wheat that grows so high, but who's going to harvest it? Talmud Lomar, both say first of the widest lines, Yirash Kalvanon Piryo, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mevi Ruach Mebeis Gnozov, Uminashba Aleha, Umashra Esalsa. So let's listen to this. Hashem will bring a wind. The wind will cause the wheat to bend over, right? And not only that, but when the stalk is shaken, fine flour will come out from the wheat. Va'adam yotze l'sada. A person will go out to the field. Umevi male pisas yado. And a person will bring a handful of flour back to his family. Umimena parnasaso parnasas ansheveso. And from that one handful of flour, he will be able to support his entire mishpacha. I will say, I'll just point out, it's interesting to note, you find this, by the way, even in Parshas Bechol Kosai as well, this notion that when the Torah speaks about being blessed with plenty, yet at the same time it speaks about being satisfied with a little. So if you notice again, you have a wheat stalk that is as tall as a palm tree. It's a pretty tall wheat stalk. Right? Wind blows, it blows out a handful of fine flour. And with one handful of fine flour, suddenly everyone is satisfied. Well, if you have such a big wheat stalk, you have so much fine flour, why am I satisfied with so little? Because I will say, isn't that the ultimate goal in life? It's wonderful to have a lot, because having a lot gives you a sense of security. But ultimately, again, it should never take a lot to make a person satisfied. A person should find satiety. A person should find satisfaction even in just a little. It's this beautiful dichotomy of bracha in the Messianic era. Im chaylev klayos, chita, so amru asida chita shetei kishtei klayos shashar. But in the Messianic era, a kernel of wheat will be like the two kidneys of a large ox. So you'll say to yourself, come on, that's crazy. There's no such thing as produce growing that big. So Gemara says it's not true. You can find some examples of some pretty big produce even now. V'altetamo, sharishua kinan baleves. So say there was a story. This is now in this world. There was a story of a fox that made its home inside of a turnip. V'shakluhu umatzubo shishi litrin b'litra shel zipuri. And they found that the turnip weighed 60 litrin. Big turnip. So the point the Gemara is making over here is you could have some frame of reference for the bounty of the Messianic era as well. Amr Tanya, Amr Yosef. So the Gemara is giving some other examples of just magnificent bounty, even now, in this world, in the pre-Messianic era, to give you a window as to what is possible in the future. So there's a story in Shechem that there was once a guy whose father left him 3 stalks of a mustard plant. V'nishbach echad mehem, one of them broke. V'nimtzubo tisha kabin chardal, and they found inside of one stalk 9 kav of mustard seed. It's a lot of mustard seed. Furthermore, v'sichachu bo sukas yosra, and there was enough from the broken branch to go ahead and serve as the roof of a hut. Incredible. Rav Shimon Chachlifa. So we'll say another example of this. Rav Shimon Chachlifa said, our father left us a stalk of cabbage. The stalk was so big that we had to use a ladder to get to the top of it. So we'll say, so again, these are just examples of incredible bounty, produce bounty now. Alachas kama v'kama, what is going to happen in the Messianic era. So v'dam anavim tishtech hamar, amru lo ka'olam hazeh lo ha'olam haba. They both say the Messianic era, that's what it means an olam haba in this context. The Messianic era is not like this world. How so? Both say, this is so beautiful. Ha'olam hazeh, yesh bo tsar, liv tsar, lidroch. Both say, in this world, you have to work a lot, right? In other words, if you want produce, if you want anything, you have to work a lot. You have to go ahead. There's tsar. There's effort involved in harvesting. There's effort involved in pressing the grapes. So, olam haba, in the Messianic era, listen to this. Maybe anava achas. So, we'll say a person's going to bring 1 grape, bekaron or besina, in a wagon or a boat. Umanicha b'zavas besa. We'll say here's what's going to happen in the Messianic era. You're going to get 1 big grape, 1 big zaftig grape, and you're going to put that right in the corner of your house. And what are you going to do with it? Umas bekemena. Kifatus gadol, and about you'll be able to take from it like a large keg. Ve'itzav masikin tachas hatavshil, from the stalk of the grape you'll have enough wood to fire up your oven. Ve'in lecha kalanava va'anava she'im b'shloshim gar be'yayin, and about say in every single grape there'll be at least 30 barrels of wine, 3 garvim of yayin. Shnei mar ve'dam anov tishte chamar al tikri chamar ela chomer. We'll say chomer actually points out as a measurement is a core that is 30 si'in. Ki asrab dini amar ma'idich siv osri lagefen ero. So we'll say, what's the meaning of the pasuk osri lagefen ero? Now this pasuk, the truth is in Parshas Vayechi, and this actually is part of Yaakov Avinu's bracha to Yehuda. So what does it mean osri lagefen ero? Ein lecha kol gefen vegefen sheva eretz Yisrael she'in tzarech. And I will say, now I want to just point out something very interesting. It is interesting that the Gemara is darshaning the brachos of Yaakov to Yehuda as referring to the Messianic era. Now, the truth is, the reason for that is, where does the Gemara come up with the idea of Messianic era? I'll tell you why. The bracha of Yaakov to Yehuda was, the pasuk is, Lo yasser shevet mi Yehuda mechokek mi bein raglov, right? The scepter of rulership will not leave Yehuda, ad ki yavo Shiloh, v'lo yikasamim, until Shiloh comes, and to Shiloh all the nations will be subservient. Many of the Mefarshim understand that Shiloh is a reference to Mashiach. It's the one pasuk, one of the only pasuk in the Torah that makes any reference to the concept of messianic redemption. So if you understand the pasuk of Shiloh referring to Mashiach, then the rest of the bracha of Yehuda could also refer to Mashiach as well. So what does it mean when it says Osu the Gefen Iro, Im L'chal Kol Gefen V'Gefen Shavar Eretz Yisrael, Shein Tzarech Ira Achas Livtzar. They both say the vines of Eretz Yisrael will be so plentiful that every single vine in Eretz Yisrael will need an entire city to harvest it. Every single tree. Now, ilan srak is a tree that doesn't produce fruit. In the Messianic era, even the non-fruit trees will produce fruit. And they'll produce so much fruit that each of them are going to require 2 donkeys to carry the load. Maybe you'll say, fine, there'll be a lot of grapes, but the grapes won't produce wine. Kibes beyayin levusho. B'shem tomer eino odo. Maybe you'll say, it's not going to be red wine. But in the eyes of Chazal, red wine obviously again had a higher level of importance. Tamilomar vidam anav tishtechamar. B'shem tomer eino meravek. Maybe you'll say, fine, it'll be red, it'll be wine, but it won't intoxicate. Tamilomar susa. B'shem tomer in botam. Maybe you'll say it doesn't have the right taste. Tamilomar chalili einayim miyayin. Every palate that tastes this wine, Omer li will give me more. Will say more and more. V'shema tomar lena'arim yafa u'lezakinim einu yafa. Maybe they'll say this wine of the Messianic era, which is so bountiful. It'll be good for young people. Well, say, because you know how young people are. They'll drink anything, right? But maybe for the more refined palate, again, they're not going to find any benefits. Right? Talmud lomar u'leben shinayim mechalav. Al tikri leben shinayim ella leben shanim. Even the ben shanim, those who are older and mature with more refined palates, will enjoy this bountiful wine. Pashtei dikra b'maiksiv. So I will say, so again, and I apologize for the speed we're going through all of this, and I would urge you, these are the Gemaras that you have to also go over on your own, because there is so much here. So the Gemara says, this is incredible, I will say. Pashtei dikra b'maiksiv. So what's the Pasha Pshat in the Pasuk? And I will say, I just want to point out, the Pasha Pshat in the Pasuk, just point out is, let me just find it here. The Pasha Pshat in the Pasuk, Osri the Geffen Aro, means he will tie his donkey to the vine, or the Soreka b'nei Asaro, and again, the son of his donkey, the foal, ultimately again to the Soreka. Soreka could also mean vine, or could also mean a tree. Ki beis b'ayam levusho, he'll launder his clothing in wine, ubedam anavim suso, and literally again, he'll immerse himself in the blood of grapes. The idea of say the Pasha Pshat in the Pasuk is, Yehuda will be blessed with bounty. That's the idea. Now, I will say specifically, and this is incredible, Yehuda is going to be wine country. Wine country, which I will say, I think one of the most amazing things that you see in modern Israel, is the number of boutique wineries that are in Yehuda and Shomron. It's absolutely incredible to see. Award-winning wines that are being produced in places that literally, again, were deserts, just until the cup. That's the bracha of Yehuda. So that's the Pasha Pshat. The Gemara says, okay, come on, but what's the real Pasha Pshat? So we'll say, this is so incredibly beautiful. The Gemara says, here's the Pasha Pshat. So, Kiyas Ravdini said, Amra Knesset Yisrael V'nei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi said, Knesset Yisrael says to Hashem, Klal Yisrael says to Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, Ramos Be'inecha Debasis Mechamra. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hint to me with your eyes that I am sweeter to you, more fragrant to you than wine. So I will say, what does this mean? I should spend 30 seconds on this. I will say, what does a Jew want more than anything? What does any child want more than anything? I want to know that my parent is proud of me. And I want to know that my parent loves me. And I will say it's even deeper. I want to know that my parent's proud of me, even though I know I don't measure up to expectations. See, I will say often, children don't measure up to parental expectations. Now, many times that's because parental expectations may be incorrect. But and often a child knows, I'm not measuring up to my parents' expectations. But what does a child want more than anything? I want to know that you love me, and that you care about me, and that you're proud of me, even if I'm not doing exactly what you want and how you want me to do it. And I will say, what does Klal Yisrael say to Hashem? Ramos be'inecha debas semechamra. Tell me, Hashem, tell me, wink to me with your eyes, so to speak, that I'm as fragrant to you as wine. And what? The Gemara says, I'm sorry, and ultimately, again, show me with your teeth. Show me with your teeth means smile at me. Smile at me. And ultimately, again, show me that I'm as sweet to you as milk. Rashi says over here, Ramos li be'inayich v'titargim lashon shchok mitoch choch li be'inayim. So also the Gemara is darshaning the pasuk over here. So it's darshaning it. Sorry, I keep losing the pasuk. Good. So darshaning the pasuk. Ultimately, again, for Hashem, show me, right? Wink to me with your eyes that I'm as fragrant to you as wine. Smile to me. Show me the white of your teeth. And ultimately, again, show me, right? Smile at me and show me that I'm sweeter to you than milk. It's so beautiful. Both say it is better to literally, again, show your teeth. Means to show the white of your teeth, to smile. Better to smile at someone than to give them milk. Both say such a beautiful idea. What does the Yid want more than anything from Hashem? Hashem, just show me you're proud of me. Just tell me you're proud of me. I know that I mess up. I know that I do things wrong. I know that I don't live up to the expectations, and I know that I'm not living the life I could be living. But despite all of that, Hashem, can you just show me in some way that you're proud of me? That's all I want. Such an incredible idea. So the Gemara goes like, Rabbi Chiya bar Ada, great story. Rabbi Chiya bar Ada, Mikri Dad Kidir Reish Lakish Haba. Rabbi Chiya bar Abba was the Rebbe. He taught the children of Reish Lakish. Watch this. Ifkar Tlas Yami V'la Ase. He was out the cheder, he didn't show up to work for 3 days. Kiyasa, when he came back, when Rabbi Chiya bar Ada came back, Amalei, Amai Ifkars, he said to Reish Lakish, where were you? Where were you for 3 days? You were absent from the cheder. What happened over here? You happened from the school. Amalei, so listen to this. So Rabbi Chiya bar Abba said, Dalis achas hiniach li Abba. My father left me one vine. He left me one vine in my Yerusha. And what happened? It was harvest season for the vine. So I had to take off from work in order to harvest the vine. But listen to the bounty. And I had 3 days of harvest. Yom Rishon, Kimol Meos Ashkolos. On the first day, 300 clusters of grapes. We'll say from one vine, 300 clusters of grapes. Eshkol Ligrav. And I will say every single cluster made 1 sa'ah of wine. Ridiculous. Yom Sheni, second day. I also harvested another 300 clusters of wine. Shtei Eshkolos Ligrav. And from that on day number 2, 2 clusters per sa'ah of wine. Yom Shlishi, third day, I harvested another 300 clusters. Shalosh Eshkolos Ligrav. Ultimately, again, 3 clusters per sa'ah of wine. And not only that, by the way, so I collected 900 clusters. I had to leave more than half of that in the field. In other words, there was still more than half of the full bounty left. I made it hefker. Amalei, supposed to listen to this. Incredible. Reish Lakish, so Rabbi Chiya says, that's why I missed work. I had to harvest the vine for 3 days. Reish Lakish says back to Rabbi Chiya something amazing. Ilav, Tifkart, had you not missed work, right? Had you not missed work, had you come to go ahead and teach the children, Hava Avda Tfei, your vine would have given even more. Your vine would have given up. If you look at the vine, what ended up happening was, first day, 300 clusters, each cluster produced a sa'ah. Second day, 300 clusters, 2 clusters per sa'ah. Third day, 300 clusters, 3 clusters per sa'ah. Reish Lakish says, you have a spiritual task. Your spiritual task is to educate children. Hire someone to go ahead and harvest the vine. Had you hired someone, the vine would have had the same output each of the days. But because you neglected your spiritual responsibilities, there was a diminution in the output of the vine from day to day. And I will say, what a profound Gemara. No material blessing ever comes from neglecting one's spiritual obligations. See, I will say, sometimes we think, I'm going to cut a corner over here. I'm going to cut a corner on this spiritual thing. I'm going to cut a corner on this spiritual thing. I'll run from this, run to that. I'll do... And somehow, like by cutting something spiritual short, somehow I think that I'm gaining in some other area of life. And the Gemara says it's fundamentally untrue. If I cut corners in Ruchnius, I never get ahead. And even if it looks like I get ahead, in the grand scheme of things, I'm causing myself to lose out. It's beautiful. So again, Reish Lakish says to Rabbi Chiya bar Abba, it's fantastic. But could you imagine had you shown up and done what you're supposed to do? Had you shown up and educated the children? I will say, by the way, it's not a din in chinuch, it's not a din in education. We all have spiritual responsibilities. And too often the Tzahara is, cut a corner in Ruchnius so I could go ahead and take care of the rest of my things in life. It's tempting because Ruchnius is the one thing that you can cut corners on. But just know, if I cut corners on my Ruchnius in whatever area that it is, I never come out ahead. Such an incredible Gemara. Rabbi Bar Yechezkel, Ikal Bnei Brak. Rabbi Bar Yechezkel went to Bnei Brak. Chazar lahanu izi deka'achli tusi te'eni v'chanat toshimi te'eni v'chalva tarif minayhu u'ma'are bahadi adadi. So what says in this? Rabbi Bar Yechezkel went to Bnei Brak, and when he was in Bnei Brak, what happened? He saw, this is incredible, he saw goats who were eating dates. Bnei Brak looks a little bit different these days than it did in Rabbi Bar Yechezkel's time. So what happens? He's eating dates. The goat is eating dates. And there's honey coming out of the dates and milk coming out of the udders of the goat. And all of this is mixing together. Amar, hainu zavas chalav udevash. This is what it means when the pasuk says that Eretz Yisrael is a land of milk and honey. Amar Rabbi Yaakov by this day, milud la'ono shosha milim. From lud to ono, it's 3 mil. Pam achas kadamti b'neshef. One time I got up before sunrise, v'halachti ad karsulai b'dvash shel te'inim. And I was walking, and I was up to my ankles in the honey of dates. So let's remember again, the honey of Eretz Yisrael is not bee honey, right? The honey of Eretz Yisrael is date honey. So again, these are just examples of how the land is overflowing with bounty. I saw the zavas chalav udvash of tzipor. In other words, I saw the milk and honey of tzipori. And I saw an area of milk and honey that literally, again, was 16 mil by 16 mil. I saw the milk and honey of Eretz Yisrael. Top of Kufkid Beis Vahavi, Kemavi Michsi ad Akra de Tulkabani. And it was the distance from Mavi Michsi until Akra de Tulkabani. These are places. Rashi Gemara says, Chaf Beis Parsa Urka Ufusya Shisa Parsi. It was a length of 22 parsos by a width of 6 parsos. So we'll say they're literally seeing the bounty of Eretz Yisrael. Top of Kufkid Beis, second line down. Rabbi Chelbo, Rabbi Avir, Rabbi Yossi Rachanino. Eklolahu Asra. So they went to a particular place. Aisu kameo afar sika. So Moshe says in Eretz Yisrael, they brought before them a peach. To have a ilfis kefarhino. The ilfis kefarhino kamahavi hey sitin. And they brought them a peach that was the size of a frying pan in the village of Hino. How large is that? 5 saw. Both say 5 saw peach. It's one big peach. So achlu shlish, so all of them together, they were able to eat a third of it. Viv kiroshes, they made a third of it hefker. Then they had a third left over to feed their animals. L'shana ikla Rebbe Elazar lahasam. Next year, Rebbe Elazar went back to that same place. Vaisu lekame. They brought him a peach again. Naktu biyadei. Rebbe say this time the peach was so small that he held it in the palm of his hand. Ba'amar eretz pri lemlecha miras yoshveba. So Rebbe say ultimately again, he said, quoting over here the pasuk from Tehillim, eretz pri lemlecha miras yoshveba. Says so that he saw the diminution in the size of the peach, ultimately again to be reflective of the fact that the inhabitants of the land were no longer fulfilling the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're going to say Eretz Yisrael has this unique relationship with its inhabitants, that when we do what we're supposed to do, the land produces in incredible ways. And when we don't do what we're supposed to do, unfortunately, the land withholds its bounty. Rabbi Yosef ben Levi iklo legalba. Rabbi Yosef ben Levi went to the city of Gavlo. Chazino lahano ketufi tavikaimi ki igli. He saw these ketufi. Rashi says are clusters of grapes. He saw vines that had clusters of grapes, and the clusters were so big that they looked like calves. Amr agalim ben agifanim. He said there are calves in the vineyard. Amrulo, they said to him, we'll say first wide line, katufin. No, those aren't calves. Those are clusters of grapes. So Rabbi say now the in between of this story was this was already at a point in time where Klal Yisrael was no longer living in this region. So there were foreign nations occupying this land. Amru, Eretz Hachnisi Perosayach, Lemi'at Motzia Perosayach, La'aravim Halalu Sha'amdu Alinu Bechat Asinu. So what's this incredible? Rabbi Shimon Levi was upset. He said, land, why are you producing this bounty for those who have taken this land from us? For the Arabs, right, who are now occupying this land as a result of our sins. So he said, I will say, Arabs could be a nondescript term for whoever that occupying nation was. The point was happening over here is Rabbi Shimon Levi is saying, land, why are you producing such a beautiful bounty when it's not your children who are living upon the land? So what happens? L'shana ikla Rabbi Chia lahasam. The next year, Rabbi Chia went to this same city, to Gavla. What happens? He saw clusters that looked like goats. So again, it was still bountiful. Amr, izin bein agifanim. So once again, Rabbi Chia said to the inhabitants there are goats between the clusters. Amrulei zil lo ta'avid lanki chabrach. And I said to him, close your mouth, get out of here. Right? Don't do toss with your friend. Because we'll say, by the way, if you notice already, in year 1, the clusters look like calves. In year 2, they look like goats, which means again they got smaller. So now they hear Rabbi Chia saying this. They're nervous that Rabbi Chia is going to pull the same shtick that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi did. So they tell him to be quiet and leave. Incredible. Tan Rabbanon, bebrichoseh shal Eretz Yisrael. Listen to this. In the brachas of Eretz Yisrael, Beis Sa'a oseh chameshes rebo kurin. Rabbi says incredible. When Eretz Yisrael, when the land produces at full capacity, one base saw of land can produce 50,000 kur of produce. One base saw, 50,000 kor. B'shivasol shel Tzoan, when the city of Tzoan is inhabited by Jews, Beis Sa'ah osin shivin kurin. So one Beis Sa'ah could produce 70 kor. Design Yarei Meir. So we'll say now, but I remember again, Tzoan is outside of Eretz Yisrael. Tzoan is outside of Eretz Yisrael. So it's a contrast. When Eretz Yisrael is settled by the Jews, again, and when the Jews are doing what they're supposed to, because also remember again, the land, Eretz Yisrael, is a dynamic, reactionary land. Our behaviors, right, our spiritual state of being is reflected in the land itself. In the land itself. So therefore, when Klal Yisrael is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the land is reacting a certain way, one Beis Sa'ah in Eretz Yisrael produces 50,000 kor. Contrast that with Tzoan, which is a fertile land outside of Eretz Yisrael, where one Beis Sa'ah makes 70 kor. By the way, one Sa'ah of land making 70 kor is considered great. That's fantastic output. Watch this. I was one time in the valley of Beis Sha'an. Beis Sa'ah osin shivin kurim. Ultimately, again, one Sa'ah of land that produced 70 kor of produce. In general, the most fertile land on the face of the earth is Egypt. That Mitzrayim was like literally the garden of Hashem. It was so fertile. Now, in all of Mitzrayim, the most fertile region of Mitzrayim was called Tzoan. And I will say again, this is why the kings actually chose to make the seat of their monarchy in Tzoan. The kings used to gather there. Now watch this. Now I will say, the rockiest place in Eretz Yisrael, Yoser, Mechevron. The rockiest place in Eretz Yisrael is Chevron. I will say, now how do we know this? I will say, that's why Chevron was used as a cemetery. In other words, it's not a coincidence that, again, I will say, in general, whatever you use as a cemetery, you can't use for farming land. Right? So obviously, you're only going to use for a cemetery a place that you can't really farm. Chevron was considered to be very rocky terrain, and that's why ultimately Maras Machpelah is there. So the Gemara says, "Va'afilu hachi Chevron mavuna al achas mishiva." But so nevertheless, Chevron itself is at least 7 times more fertile than Tzoan. D'chsiv the Chevron sheva shanim nivnesa lifnei Tzoan Mitzrayim. Because also the pasuk says that Chevron was, now literally translated, it means Chevron was built 7 years before Tzoan in Egypt. Then I will say, my nivnesa. What does it mean it was built? So ilema nivnesa mamish, if you want to say it means literally built, afshar adam bona bayis libno katan kol yishivne libno gadol. I will say it doesn't make sense, because why would a person, remember again, Tzoan, Chevron was built for the younger son, right? And Tzoan was built for the older children. So Gemara says over here, yeah. So I just want to quote to you the pasuk. The pasuk. Vayalu b'nagav vayavu ad Chevron v'sham achiman sheshevet hama yidei anak v'Chevron sheva shanim nivnesa lifnei Tzoan b'Mitzrayim. Shabbos says, so the idea over here, my nivnesa. So if it's good, so Gemara says, Shneimar ubnei Cham kush u'Mitzrayim uput u'Kinaan. Shabbos says, so interestingly enough, so Cham, who got Mitzrayim, was older ultimately again than Canaan, or Cush was older than Canaan, Mitzrayim was older than Canaan. So it makes sense to say that the lands of Canaan ultimately again were built before the lands of Mitzrayim were built before Canaan. If the lands of Mitzrayim were built before Canaan, then why does it say that Chevron, which obviously is in Canaan, was built 7 years before Tzoan Mitzrayim? It doesn't make sense. Ella, the Gemara says, you're right. Shemavuna lachas mishiva b'Tzoan. What it means is that Chevron, Abosai, was Mavuna. Mavuna means fertile. Chevron was 7 times more fertile than Tzoan. Then Abosai, how incredibly dramatic is that? Chevron was 7 times more fertile than Tzoan. Mitzrayim was the most fertile land. Tzoan was the most fertile crescent, right? The most fertile area of Mitzrayim. Chevron is the rockiest area in Eretz Yisrael, and yet Chevron was 7 times more fertile than Tzoan. That is true. And I will say, so Chevron, which is a rocky area, is 7 times more fertile than Tzoan. Aval shelo b'trashim chamesh mios. The Bible said the other areas in Eretz Yisrael which aren't rocky are 500 times more fertile than so on. Incredible. V'hani mili shlo bechoseh. And I will say, by the way, all of this is even when the land is not incredibly blessed. Rashi says, Kishashon mevorechas. All of it's not even talking about in a good year. Aval b'bir choseh. I will say, in a good year, Vayizra Yitzchak be'eretz ahi mea sha'arim. I will say, in a good year, the bounty is even more. Tanya, Rabbi Yossi, Sa'ah Yehuda. You will say what Rabbi Yossi said, one sa'ah in Yehuda, planted in Yehuda, would create the following. Haya oseh, chamesh se'in sa'ah kemach. Chamesh se'in would make 5 sa'ah of regular wheat. Sa'ah kemach, a sa'ah flour. Sa'ah soles, a sa'ah finer flour. Sa'ah subin, one of course brand. Sa'ah morsin, the sa'ah kibur. We'll say the idea being that in Yehuda, 5 se'in, right? I'm sorry. 1 sa'ah of Yehuda would produce all of this, and these are all different types of grain or flour that are coming out of the same sa'ah of wheat, the five sa'ah. Amar le'Tzeduki, Amar le'Yahud Tzeduki, Rabbi Chanina. So we'll say there was a Tzeduki. Remember, who are the Tzedukim? They do not believe in Torah Shabbat Peh, right? They do not believe in the oral tradition, right? They only believe in Torah Shabbat. So let's do it. Rabbi Chanina, Yom Ashbichasa Baha Ba'arkon. Right? It is very proper that ultimately, again, you praise your land, because after all, Beis Sa Niach Li'Abba. The Stugi said, my father left me 1 sa'ah of land. Mimena Mashach, Mimena Chamar, Mimena Ibar, Mimena Kitnius, Mimena Ros Miknasi. From 1 sa'ah of land, that 1 sa'ah of land produces oil, produces wine, produces grain, produces legumes, and provides grazing area for my livestock. Rabbi say, so this is the Tzeduki. This is the say, you see, to see the greatness of Eretz Yisrael, you don't even have to believe in stuff, because the greatness of Eretz Yisrael is so evident, is so impossible to deny, that even this Tzeduki, who was theologically handicapped, theologically impaired, was still able to see the greatness in the land. Incredible. Listen to this. There was this Amorah, right? So I will say, so again, Rashi says over here, Amorah, and this kind of Mibnei Ha'emori, one of the members of the Amorite nation, who said to a Jew, Hi Tilsa the Kaima Guda Diardena, Kamagadis. So listen to this. This Amori guy said, listen, I remember that there is a palm tree right on the banks of the Jordan. Tell me what was the output from that tree? Amrle, Shisin Kuri. The Jew said 60 kur of dates I got from that tree. Amrle Akati lo Ailisuba Achrivusa. So the Amori guy got very angry. He said, you Jews, you came here and you've already destroyed the land. We used to harvest 120 kur of dates from that tree. The Jew says, Amalek, calm down. I only harvested 1/2 of the tree so far. Right? In other words, I only harvested 1/2 of the tree. I both say the bounty of Eretz Yisrael. What does it mean when I say I will give you, literally again, a beautiful land, the portion of the deer? Why is this Eretz Yisrael compared to a deer? So I will say, interesting enough, after you shech the deer and you flay the skin, right? You flay the hide. You can't fit the meat back in the hide, which makes sense because the hide contracts after the animal skin. But the idea is the same skin, right? That housed all the once it can no longer contain the meat. Both say this is so beautiful. Eretz Yisrael produces too much bracha for it to store. In other words, that the bounty of Eretz Yisrael does not match the size of Eretz Yisrael. There's more bounty, right? There's more meat than skin. There's more bounty than land. Davar acher, matzvi zeh kal mikol hachayos, just like the sea is fast of all the animals. Eretz Yisrael kal mikol haros as lavashal perosel. Eretz Yisrael produces fruits, right? Its produce matures faster than anywhere else. Matzvi zeh kal ve'en b'shar shamin. Maybe the deer has meat, but the meat is very lean. Maybe the fruits of Eretz Yisrael are also very lean. In other words, not in a good way. Talmud Lomar, zavas chalav udvash. Shmeidim mechalav umusukim midvash. They have like the fat, right? They have like the fat of milk and the sweetness of dates. Rabbi Lazar kevasal Eretz Yisrael Amar, palti li mechada. As in Grabos. So when Rabbi Lazar came to Eretz Yisrael, he said, I've been saved from one thing. Ki samchu, when he got smicha, Amru palti mitarti. I've been saved from 2 things. When they told him the secret of the Ibra, which is the secret of how to create the calendar. Ultimately, palti li mitlas. I've been saved from 3 things. What are we talking about over here? Shnei Amar, goes to the Gemara, go quotes the pasuk from Yechezkel. V'haisi yadi al hanaviyim achozim shav. Besod ami lo yihiyu. So we'll say over here. So what Rabbi Lazar was saying was as follows: that the Navi over here was talking about the idea about Klal Yisrael being excluded from certain things. So besod ami lo yihiyu, they will not be in the secret of my nation. Zesod Ibor. This is the secret of the months. Ubiksav beis Yisrael lo yichtavu zesmicha. Our first is smicha. Val admas Yisrael lo yavo. They won't come to the land. Kimashmo. So Aliza said that ultimately, again, when he came to Eretz Yisrael, he got smicha. He was given the secret of the calendar. He was spared. Right? He was spared from these three curses of Yechezkel. Incredible. So I'll say, listen to this Gemara. This is incredible. I was saying again, I apologize about the speed, but this is incredible. Rabbi Zera. Kavasak l'Eretz Yisrael lo ashkich mavra. Rabbi say, watch this. Rabbi Zera is about to enter into Eretz Yisrael. What's the problem? He couldn't find a bridge. B'pashtos, I'm assuming this means he was crossing into Eretz Yisrael from the Jordan River. What is it? Right, the Allenby Bridge. Right, he was crossing by over the Jordan River. He was crossing over the Jordan River. So what happened? Rabbi was saying the bridge was down. The bridge was down. So what does he do? So the Gemara says, "Nokit b'mitzvah v'ka'avet." So we'll say there was a rope that like a rope with a very small plank of wood. See, he pulled himself across the river on this very small plank of wood. So we'll say, "Amalei Stuki, Ama Paziza, you impetuous nation, Dekadmisma pumaychu ludinaychu. You are the people who always put your mouth before your ears." What's going to put your mouth before your ears? Rashi says, "Nasev Ishma." Nasav and Ishma, that we said we'll do even before we heard what Hashem had to tell us what we have to do. By Har Sinai. So this guy sees Rabbi Zera pulling himself across the river, right, on a tiny little footbridge, right? He's holding onto a rope, he's about to fall. So he says, "You're a fool, what are you doing? Wait for the bridge to be repaired." So the Gemara says, Amrle, so Rabbi Zera says back to the man, Duchta de Moshe ve'Aaron lo zachula. To come to the land that Moshe and Aaron were not privileged to go. Mi yemar dezachinala. So ultimately, again, who says if I wait, I'll be privileged to come in? I'll tell you, I tell this to my children every single time I'm privileged to go to Eretz Yisrael. As you know, in that first incredible moment, right, where you're coming in by Tel Aviv, right, and you're by the ocean, you see the shore, and you see the first glimpse of land. So just understand, right now, being in the airspace of Eretz Yisrael, you are zocheh to do something that Moshe and Aaron were never able to do. I'll never know as much Torah as Moshe and Aaron. I'll never be on the Ruchni level as Moshe and Aaron. But to be able to set foot in Eretz Yisrael is a schus that Moshe and Aaron themselves never had the privilege. Rabbi Zera says, so the bridge is down. So what? I'm going to let the bridge stop me from getting into my land, from getting home, from getting to the place that Moshe and Aaron never. Incredible story. Rabbi Abba, we'll say other examples of the love of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Abba, Menashe Kipi Da'ako. Rabbi Abba, let's remember again, Akko is one of the borders of Eretz Yisrael. So Rabbi Abba, when he would come into Eretz Yisrael, his first city would be Akko. So Menashke Kipi, he would kiss the rocks. Rabbi Chanina, Metaki Miske, Rabbi say, Rabbi Chanina literally Metaki Miske means that Rabbi say if there was debris on the road or something wrong on the road, Rabbi Chanina would go ahead and fix the roads. Rabbi say, I'll tell you contemporarily, this is incredibly important. If you see garbage on the ground in Eretz Yisrael, you pick it up. In general, when you see garbage, you should pick it up. Right? But I'm saying if you're out on 7 Mile Lane, I don't know that you mechiv to pick up someone else's garbage. Right? But Lamais in Eretz Yisrael, whatever a Yid could do to beautify the land, so Eretz Yisrael should look beautiful, you have an obligation, he would pick up the garbage, he would fix the roads. Rabbi Yassi, what would they do? Kaimi, Misham Shilatula, Mitula Shimsha. The boss say, this is incredible. Okay, good. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Good. Shabbos says, listen to this. Rabbi Yamin, Rabbi Asi, this is incredible. They would go, literally again, Mishum Shalatul means from the sun to the shade and from the shade to the sun. What does this mean? They would often give shir outdoors. So during the summer, when it's hot, when the sun got hot, they would move into the shade. And when it was winter, they would move from the shade into the sun. What was the idea? They never wanted their Talmidim to say anything negative about Eretz Yisrael. The Bible says, you see, it just shows you, even about the weather. It's never too hot in Eretz Yisrael, and it's never too cold in Eretz Yisrael. It's exactly as it needs to be. So they would move around. Can you imagine? So sitting in shear, big shear, and they're sitting in shear. And when it got too hot, they would purposely move to the shade. No one should chas v'shalom say it's too hot in Eretz Yisrael. During the winter, no one should ever say it's too cold. Incredible. Rabbi Chiya bar Gamda min gader ba'afra. So I'll just point out, by the way, if you see how careful these Rabbanim were that no one should ever say anything negative about the land, alachas kama v'kama, how careful you have to be about saying something negative about another Jew. Because as holy as the land is, a Jew is even holier than Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is a land, but a Yid, a Jew, right? The land is land, holy land, yes, but nothing's holier than a Jew. So if you have to be careful about chas v'shalom not coming to say something negative about the land, Allah has come v'kama, how careful we have to be about not saying negative things about each other. So the Gemara goes weiter. Rabbi Chiya bar Gamda, this is great. Nadar the Afra, he would roll around in the dirt of Eretz Yisrael. Shneimar ki rotzu avadechas havanavas Afra yichanenu. Am Rabbi Zera, Am Rabbi Yirmiyah ba'ada Dor sheben David ba. So what's this incredible Gemara? The generation that Mashiach comes in, kategar v'tamidi chachamim. There's going to be incredible kategar. Rashi says, kategar harbe mastinim umalamdin chol yamdu aleim. There's going to be persecution against Talmidei Chachamim. And what does it mean? Just Talmidei Chachamim, or even Talmidei Chachamim. There's going to be such persecution, anger, and animosity that is directed towards those who embody Torah. Ki amrisa kamid Shmuel Amar tziruf achar tziruf, which literally means forging after forging. In other words, there's going to be an intensity of anti-Semitism. Shnei Amar the ad ba, the od ba. Assyria v'shava v'haisel levar ke'ela. So we'll say, so the idea of so Tani Rabbi Yosef bezuzi or bezuzi de bezuzi. There's going to be plundering and then plundering after plundering. We'll say, so the Gemara here describing a dynamic which the Gemara actually explained earlier as well, that in the Messianic era or in the generation of not in the Messianic era, in the immediate pre-Messianic era, there's going to be an incredible amount of persecution against Jews. Right? An incredible amount. Bezuzin are plundering after plundering, difficulty after plundering. And I will say, there'll be an effort to dafka undermine the Talmidei Chachamim. An effort to dafka undermine the authenticity of Torah. So I will say, again, it's just interesting to see that in general, our concept is that in the era immediately preceding dramatic redemption, there's going to be dramatic persecution. Halavai, that these days that the Gemara is describing are already behind us. Right? We've had enough persecution, enough difficulty. Again, recognizing that 6 million Kedoshim less than a century ago. So it'd be hard to imagine that Klal Yisrael could endure any more. Halavai, this period should be behind us. So supposed to remember again, there doesn't necessarily have to be an immediacy the way we understand that there's persecution that immediately Mashiach. In the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, remember again, time is but a human construct. So at the end of the day, it's possible that the persecution could occur, and Mashiach comes sometime, quote unquote, immediately afterwards. Amar Rabbi Chiya bar Ashi. We'll say, last line of the second Kesuvos. Amar Rabbi Chiya bar Ashi, Amar Rav, Asidin Kali Lani Sak Shabaritz Yisrael, Sheyitinu Pera. So we'll say in the Messianic era, even the Ilani Strak are non-fruit trees. Non-fruit trees. I don't know what the technical term for non-fruit trees are. Right, non-fruit trees. Ilani structure are going to go ahead and bring forth produce. Shneimar ki eitz nasa perio te'ina v'geven nasnu chelam. Literally translated, because the tree, which means all trees, will bring forth their fruit. The fig, the vine, ultimately will give forth their wealth. Now, I will say, I point out something very interesting. Tosas brings down here something fascinating. Tosas says, "Asidin kol ilani strak shabaritz Yisrael sheitinu peros lefi shiratzol sayin." I will say, what is Tosas bothered by? Why is this statement here? In other words, this seems to be totally out of place. We were talking about, I will say this belongs earlier, right? We were talking about, again, the bounty of Eretz Yisrael. Now, this is a big one, by the way. The idea that even non-fruit trees are going to produce fruit is something absolutely dramatic. Put it over here. Or put it on Amud Aleph, or Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. That's where it belongs. Why ultimately, again, is this here? Tosas says something amazing. Lefi sharotz l'sayim b'davar tov. The Gemara doesn't want to end off the Masechta with the discussion about persecution in the pre-Messianic era. That's not how we want to end off the Masechta. Therefore, nakat lehacha v'lo ka'amr le'el da'ari b'hanim yili. Even though, again, this line really goes ahead and belongs earlier, At the end of the Gemara wants to end off at a positive note, doesn't want to end off with persecution, so ends off with this beautiful picture. And then in the Messianic era, even the barren trees, even the non-fruit trees, ultimately will produce fruits. Rabbi say, the Belzer Rebbe says something absolutely amazing. This is beautiful, but obviously, again, Chazal could have ended off with anything positive. What does this mean? So let's listen to what the Rebbe says. What does it mean? Asidin kali lani that even the barren trees will produce fruit. The Rebbe says, Sha'afilu haposhim hanim shalim li'ilani srak. That even, I will say, sometimes you know who's a barren tree? Is a person without mitzvahs. Right? A person is compared to a tree. So hopefully, again, a person is a fruit tree. I'm producing fruit of Torah, of mitzvahs, of chasadim. But sometimes, I'm an ilan srak. Sometimes I am a barren tree. I produce absolutely nothing. I accomplish absolutely nothing. Or the fruits that I do produce, they're withered. There's nothing to look at. So what does the Gemara promise us? Even the barren trees, Sheberetzo and Am Yisrael, Yit Anu Peros, ultimately again, have the ability to produce fruit. The Gemara says, the message over here is not simply about the Messianic era. Right? Rabbi say, what does Asidin mean? Say in the future. Rabbi say, so we often translate Asidin as what? A reference to the Messianic era. The Belzer Rebbe says, what does Asidin mean? What does Asidin mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? How do you define Asidin? Chavra. Asidin. How do you translate it? In the future. When's the future? When's the future? The future's now. The future's now. Asidin kol ilanis rak sheberetz Yisrael. Even the most barren tree in Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, so sheyitanu peros, has the ability to produce fruit. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we look like barren trees. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we're so disappointed about the lack of accomplishment. Sometimes we look at ourselves and I'm so upset that I'm just 1 month into the new year and I'm already repeating the same exact mistakes of the past. I divested myself of my fruit. Says the Gemara, don't worry. Even if you're an ilan srak, even if you are a fruitless tree, asidin, you could change your future. And in your future, you have the ability to bear the most magnificent, beautiful, and holy of fruit. I will say, what a way to end the Masechta. What a message of incredible chizik. I will say, mazel tov on this overwhelming, beautiful, magnificent accomplishment. And by the way, what a schos to finish a Masechta on Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. What an incredible schos, Baruch Hashem, to close out 1 month and begin the new month, Baruch Hashem, with a brand new Masechta. We'll say such a eschachus. HaChodesh hazeh lochem rosh chadashim. We'll say, I'll just say that we're going to start davening. HaChodesh hazeh lochem rosh chadashim. The Baal Shem Tov says that this month, what does it mean? Every single Rosh Chodesh brings with it a eschachus, a renewal, a new beginning. Every Rosh Chodesh is its own Rosh Hashanah. Every Rosh Chodesh is its own new beginning. And I will say, what a way to go into a new Masechta with a sense of recommitting ourselves. I would urge you, I'm not urging you, I beg you, make time, especially, I'm not asking you to chazer the first couple of prakim of Kesuvos. Okay, but the Agarata, which we flew through, bend down. Everyone has time. Everyone has time to add an extra 10 minutes of your day just to chazer over these beautiful Gemaras, so much of which we only skim the surface, reap the messages. Go ahead and extract the beautiful wine from the grapes of Torah. And we'll see if such as tomorrow we start Nidarim. Nidarim is not an easy Masechta. It's a beautiful Masechta. It's a beautiful Masechta. It's a fantastic Masechta. It's not going to be easy. It's tempting to check out during the challenging Masechtas. And sometimes, we check out in a passive-aggressive way. I come late. I leave early. I'm here. But whatever. I'll say, again, Chodesh hazalachan. Don't become an ilan srak over the course of Nidarim. Be in. Be all in. This is our relationship to Torah. This is our relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi say is schus to finish this Masechta with you. Can't wait to Menucha Shaindl till tomorrow. Mazel tov.